Alhaji Abubakar Atiku and Mr. Peter Obi, they were not very flattering in their review of the president's 2-year in office. How do you respond to that, Mr. Reno?
I'm going to take both of them on. I'll start with Peter Obi. First and foremost, Peter Obi was being very dishonest, and I can prove it to you. Peter Obi used to be chairman of a bank, had majority shares. Now he has about 10% shares in that bank. That bank, I'm not going to mention the name of the bank because I respect them and I don't want them to think that I'm going after them. But last year, the bank declared profit of 124.3 billion naira. This year, and they just released their figures about a month ago, they declared profit of 385.4 billion naira. So their profit has increased by more than 3, by a multiple of times 3, more than that. So I'm going to ask you a question now. If Peter Obi is saying that the economy is not growing, the president is not handling the economy very well, how come his own bank, where he has 10% shares, has increased in profitability by over 3 times? That's 300%, over 300%. It is not possible. His statement is contradictory to his finance situation.
Just my people, I see the hot, you don't happen, no, Reno Omokri. Reno Omokri. Why not talk too much? You are praising President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The economy under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says progressive, that Peter Obi is lying. Say Peter Obi aiming for invest. They are even getting more percentage than before. That means you are trying to explain that Tinubu's economy is favoring only the rich and not the poor, because we be poor, we know see the economy not go well. And the hunger rate in this country is getting, and it's more alarming even self. Why not talk too much? Just listen to the rubbish. Okay, just listen to what he explain and share it with the member when they see him.
So he's about 64 years old. In his entire life, at no time has he been as profitable as in this last year under President Tinubu. And the reason why is because President Tinubu is handling the economy very well. We've seen that now we have a trade surplus of about $14 billion, actually $14.1 billion. It's never happened before. What's a trade surplus? When you are exporting more than you are importing. That's a good sign of the health of the economy. Peter Obi is not smarter than Fitch. Fitch is the #1 ratings agency in the whole world, bar none. Standard & Poor's and Knight Frank, they all come after Fitch. And Fitch has upgraded Nigeria's economy to a stable B. Don't forget, this is the same Fitch that downgraded the United States economy for the first time ever. They upgraded our economy. So what is Peter Obi talking about? Now, with due respect to Alhaji Waziri Atiku Abubakar, this is a man I respect so much. So even though I disagree with what he said, I'm not going to address it because of the respect that I have for him. All I would say is that President Tinubu met a debt profile of $108 billion. Right now, our debt is $94 billion. So it has reduced by $14 billion. So there is no way you can call such a person someone who's addicted to debt, someone who's reducing our national debt. With all due respect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has exceeded the expectations of most reasonable Nigerians. Why do I say so? He's reduced our debt, he's increased our trade surplus. In fact, we didn't even have a trade surplus before, he's increased it. If you are an investor, the All Shares Index, they've achieved 2 records under President Bola Tinubu. And this man came in, Nigeria was the #1 petrol importer in Africa. Right now, we are not. South Africa has now overtaken us. We are now instead the #1 petrol exporter in West Africa. So anybody saying that this man has not done well is just being political and they are not being truthful.
Very, as usual, Reno, you always come in with a lot of hard facts. But let's take it, away from, Mr. Peter Obi and Atiku. There are people that are doing well, just like you've shown that Peter Obi's bank is doing well. But do you think that the average Nigerian, the mass of our people who are still groaning under the economic pains, would you say that they are doing well? Won't you concede, like the administration has done, that there is still quite a bit of suffering in the land because of some of those reforms, which many of us agree are an imperative, you've got to do them, but there's still a lot of suffering in the land. Reno?
There is still a lot of suffering in the land. Nigeria is not a rich country. So if you have a father that is not rich and you're suffering, you can't be complaining and saying, well, I'm suffering. No, your father is not rich. Nigeria is an oil poor country. The reason why the Naira is now 1,560 to the dollar is not because President Bola Tinubu is a terrible president. No, it's because he started floating the Naira and stopped subsidizing the Naira. A lot of people who are ignorant, like Peter Obi, have cited the figure. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, he was saying when the Naira was 165 Naira to a dollar, people protested. Why are they not protesting now? I was presidential spokesman when the Naira was 165 Naira to a dollar. At that point in time, the Naira was being subsidized. Under Muhammadu Buhari, the Naira was being subsidized. So what you were seeing as a Nigerian wasn't the actual value of the Naira. The federal government of Nigeria was spending $1.5 billion every month to subsidize Naira. Please assume I'm a liar and go and fact check me. $1.5 billion every month subsidizing the Naira. And this was not money that we had. This was money that we were borrowing. Now, we weren't spending 1.5 billion every month on healthcare, on education, on roads. We were spending it subsidizing the Naira. And you know what, Laolu, I will stun you today. Do you know what Nigerians were using that money to do, the cheap dollars? Do you know what we're using it to do?
Go ahead.
We were spending $200 million annually on importing human hair for our women to wear, human hair. We were spending $75 million on French champagne. We were spending 25 million pounds on Scotch whiskey. So if we were subsidizing the Naira and then our people were spending it on transferring technology, buying heavy equipment, things that will make the economy better, it would even make sense to keep on subsidizing the Naira. But look at how we were pissing away the cheap dollars on very silly things. So the reason why we now have a trade surplus is because President Bola Tinubu has done what worked in Vietnam. He has floated the Naira and made imports so expensive that Nigerians have no other choice than to buy made in Nigeria. And look at me, everything I am wearing from head to toe is made in Nigeria. And that's how we are going to grow our economy.
Okay, now, would you suggest, since, it's very clear that you have, these views about the administration and, you do a good job in trying to articulate it as best as you could. But will you also suggest to the administration, or will you agree that this is no time for the administration or its officials to show any kind of ostentation? And we've seen quite a bit of it, Reno. What's your view on that? So you make this analysis, but we see the administration doing some rather ostentatious things, buying a new jet, even though it's refurbished, building the vice president's, house, 23 billion. Even
Let me step in there.
Please go ahead.
The Tinubu administration did not build the vice president's house. That project was started under our administration. Please fact check me. It was started under our administration.
There's no doubt about that.
Continued.
There's no doubt about that.
No,
the point is that.
Let me land.
Okay, all right.
But allow me land.
Please go ahead.
Please allow me land. It was started by our administration, continued by the Buhari administration. Now, after the project had gone 95% ahead, and then the Bola Tinubu administration comes and you say that they should now stop the 5%, then it is actually not going to be cost efficient. So that means you've wasted the 95%. So let's put things into perspective. You talked about the presidential jet. It is actually more expensive on a dollar cost averaging basis for the president to fly commercial. It's actually more expensive. That jet, you said the president bought a new jet. It's not a new jet. It's not a second-hand jet. It's a third-hand jet. Now, let's put it in perspective. The United States just commissioned a $2 billion presidential jet, Air Force One, $2 billion. The presidential jet that the Bola Tinubu administration bought is less than 1% of that cost. So look at that now. No, sorry, not less than 1%. Sorry, I think it's about 100 and something million. So that would be like maybe probably about 10% of that, or less than 10%. That's about 5% of that. So if you put it into perspective, you've got to be very careful about making these kinds of sweeping statements that these are ostentatious things, because you're dealing with a man who is a first-class accountant. He graduated with a first class, or what they call in the United States, cum laude. So he makes decisions based on dollar cost averaging. And dollar cost averaging, for those who don't know, is that you put the various alternatives to a dollar cost, and then you go with the least expensive. And that's what he's done with the presidential jet. But if you recall, 2 weeks ago, this president launched what they call the Nigeria First policy. So that means that every government ministry, department, and agency must buy a made in Nigeria product where it's available rather than a foreign product. So we are seeing that the president is actually keeping to his words. Not only that, last year he issued out the policy and said from henceforth the president can only travel with, I think it was about 9 people, and then the vice president can only travel with a certain amount of people, and ministers can only travel with 2 people. This has not been done before in Nigeria, even under Muhammadu Buhari. So if you look at what's happening, I think the president is doing well in that regard.
Oh, well,